Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am super thrilled to have you here today because we're about to dive into a truly fascinating historical mystery. We're traveling over to Ueda City in Nagano Prefecture, Japan, to a region known as the beautiful Shioda Plain. But we aren't just here to look at the pretty scenery. We are here to uncover a massive, atmospheric secret hiding right in plain sight, Shioda Castle. Get ready, because this is going to completely change how you view history and the natural landscape around you. So let's jump right into this with a quick question for you. When you hear the word castle, what instantly pops into your head? Take a second and really picture it. What are the key features?
Right? If you're like most people, you're probably picturing massive, impenetrable stone walls and those gorgeous, towering white keeps, kind of like the famous Himeji or Matsumoto castles. But what if I told you that the castle we're looking at today has no grand gates, absolutely no high stone walls, and zero white keeps? Literally none of it. If you visit the site today, you're just met with a quiet, seemingly empty forest.
At first glance, it really does look like just an ordinary, quiet mountain, you know? You step into the woods and you hear the birds chirping, you see the sunlight filtering through the leaves, you feel the wind swaying the branches. It feels like nature completely untouched. But don't let that fool you. Beneath that peaceful, natural disguise hides an absolutely massive, invisible fortress. Okay, picture yourself actually hiking up this mountain path. As you climb the steep natural slope, you suddenly come across something totally unnatural, a perfectly flat tier of earth. You keep walking, and boom, there's another flat area, and another. You realize that roughly 700 years ago, this entire mountain was carved out by human hands to look like a giant, exhausting staircase. The whole point was to completely drain the stamina of any enemy force trying to attack. Let's actually define what we're looking at here. These flat, terraced areas are called kuruwa. 7 centuries ago, medieval warriors were standing on these exact spots, manning wooden defensive buildings to intercept their enemies. Now, obviously, those wooden buildings rotted away a long, long time ago. But the ingenious earthen blueprint left by those warriors, it is still permanently etched right into the mountain. Overgrown by trees, sure, but completely intact. And right alongside those terraces, you'll also find karabori, which are basically deep, dry moats. You see, instead of building towering stone walls up into the sky, these medieval defenders did the exact opposite. They dug straight down into the earth. They didn't even need a wall because they turned the mountain's natural steepness into their primary weapon, carving out these deep trenches to just entirely block an enemy's advance. So the really crucial takeaway here is that the mountain itself was the fortress. Nowadays, when we think of a stronghold, we think of thick concrete, right? Or those beautiful white plaster castles from later in Japanese history. But back in medieval Japan, nature was the ultimate stronghold. The sheer ridges, the steep slopes, the deep valleys, they literally weaponized the mountain. And just to help you grasp the staggering scale of this place, think about this number, 700. Shioda Castle wasn't just some tiny lookout outpost. It stretches for 700 meters along the natural ridge of Mount Kobo. That is nearly half a mile. It's a massive footprint of manipulated earth entirely hidden beneath the forest canopy. Plus, the state of preservation here is just mind-blowing. Even today, experts have confirmed over 20 distinct kuruwa and karabori still exist along this ridge. Because it's so incredibly preserved, Shioda Castle is considered a highly precious medieval ruin in Nagano Prefecture. It's quite literally a life-sized blueprint of medieval warfare that you can walk right through. But, that really begs a major question. Why? Why go through all the trouble to build this massive, elaborate, hidden fortress in this specific location? Well, to figure that out, we have to look at the historical context of the region, which was known back then as Shinshu's Kamakura, and the immensely powerful Hojo clan. See, the Shioda Plain wasn't just some remote, empty frontier. It was incredibly wealthy. We're talking a wide plain with super rich agricultural land, rivers feeding the crops, and intersecting roads that made it a major traffic hub. It was actually so prosperous that it became a huge center for Buddhist culture, filled with these absolutely stunning temples like Ma-Yama-yi, Chuzenji, and Anrakuji, which were established by visiting monks from the capital of Kamakura. That's exactly why they called it Shinshu's Kamakura. It was this vibrant hotspot of politics, culture, and faith. And the protectors of this golden land were the Shioda Hojo clan. These guys were deeply connected to the immensely powerful Kamakura shogunate that ruled all of Japan. And they didn't just use this mountain fortress for war, they actually governed from up there. From the top of the mountain, they could watch over their golden rice fields, the intersecting roads, the monks heading to the temples, and of course, they could collect taxes. This invisible castle was really the political beating heart of everyday life. But as we know, history never really stands still. In 1333, the Kamakura shogunate collapses, and the Hojo clan is swept from power. The castle gets taken over by new forces like the Murakami clan. Then we plunge right into the intense Sengoku period, where the scale of warfare drastically escalates. And finally, by the late 1500s, we see the construction of the famous Ueda Castle nearby. But through all of this crazy turbulence, Shioda Castle somehow survived just by constantly adapting to the changing times. Now, I want you to kind of slow down for a second. Let's step away from the textbook, dates, and names. When you actually visit Shioda Castle today, you aren't waiting in a long line to see a wooden keep. There are no glass museum cases with shiny armor. It demands your imagination. You learn by feeling the crunch of the dirt under your boots, touching the weathered stones, and feeling the wind. You are literally stepping into history rather than just reading about it on a page. There's this quote from our source material about the changing seasons here that I absolutely love. It says, "In spring, fresh greenery wraps the ruins. In winter, the hidden terrain reveals itself." And actually, that last part, that is a fantastic insider tip. Winter is without a doubt the best time to visit this castle. Once the trees lose all their leaves, the massive hidden earthen bones of the fortress, all those moats and terraces, they suddenly become incredibly clear and visible to the naked eye. And when you stand at the summit and look out, you get this direct, crazy connection to the past. If you look out over the plain towards the majestic Mount Tako today, sure, the exact shapes at the modern rice fields are a bit different, and the clothes people wear have obviously changed. But the ridges of those mountains, the layout of the valley, and the wind hitting your face, that is the exact same sensory experience those medieval warriors had 700 years ago. It's a literal physical bridge to the past. So what actually happened to it? Did it just slowly vanish? Not at all. It basically became the castle that remained. Shioda Castle wasn't destroyed. Rather, as history marched forward, the whole purpose of what a castle was in the Japanese landscape fundamentally shifted, which left Shioda completely untouched and perfectly frozen in its medieval state. Here's why that shift happened. During the Sengoku period, warfare changed completely. Armies got massively larger and firearms were introduced. So hiding out on a steep mountain ridge, suddenly not the most effective strategy anymore. Castles had to evolve into these vast, flatland centers that showed off both immense military defense and major political power. You can literally see this evolution if you compare Shioda Castle with Ueda Castle. Shioda is the ultimate medieval mountain fort, quiet, hidden, and reclaimed by the forest. But Ueda Castle, built later on the plains by the famous Sanada clan, the ones known for fighting off the Tokugawa forces, that represents the totally new era of grand, visible power centers. Shioda didn't fall to an enemy. It just quietly finished its duty and handed the baton over to the next generation. Which brings us to its truly incredible invisible legacy. Look, there are no towering monuments to famous commanders left behind here. But you know what? That lack of physical buildings isn't a loss at all. It's an invitation. It leaves room for us to imagine the footsteps of the countless, unnamed, ordinary people, the farmers working the fields below, the monks praying in the temples, the unknown warriors patrolling those ridges. The earth itself is silently holding on to their history. And that leaves us with this final kind of profound question to chew on. What will you find in a forest where nothing remains? Well, if you look closely enough, you don't find empty space at all. You find the brilliant ingenuity of medieval engineers, the quiet persistence of nature, and the echoes of 700 years of daily human life etched directly into the soil. Thank you so much for joining me on this Explainer Focused Learners. Keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and I will catch you next time.